I've been talking to you guys about these reports and some great journalism from the Washington Post. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the woman abuser, reported an order in early September to, quote, kill everybody aboard an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean, and it has sent shockwaves throughout Washington, D.C., and even Republicans are very concerned about this. And Pete Hegseth and the Trump administration has had scrutiny from key leaders in Congress, and even Donald Trump has been cautious in defending it. The Washington Post says that there was an initial strike that left 2 survivors. This is where the war crime begins, because apparently the commander in charge of the operation ordered a follow-up strike to comply with Hegseth's orders to leave no survivors. That is a war crime. Pretty cut and dry. So, how are MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump responding to this? Well, Donald Trump was asked about these boat strikes, and it doesn't seem like he's very concerned about it. Have a listen to this.
Concerned about how those boat strikes have been carried out at all?
Very little, because you can see the boats, you can see the drugs in the boats, and each boat is responsible for killing 25,000 Americans. So, and they're doing an amazing job. And you know, we're getting, you just look at the numbers, the amount of drugs coming into our country by sea is infinitesimal compared to what it was just a few months ago.
On immigration.
Now, in talking with reporters yesterday at Air Force One, Trump did claim that Hegseth's double tap strike, in regards to it, he claimed he didn't know anything about it. And then when asked about the Honduran president, which we will get into, he plays dumb when it comes to that part. And have a listen to this.
We talked a little bit about the strikes and the controversy around Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe him 100%.
So you don't know if there was
You're talking about the 2 men?
The second strike to kill the 2 men.
No, he said he didn't do it. He said he never said
Would
that.
you be okay with that if he did?
He said he didn't do it, so I don't have to make that decision.
Mr. You've made so clear how you want to keep drugs out of the U.S.
Right.
Can you explain more about why you would pardon a notorious drug trafficker?
Well, I don't know who you're talking about. Which
Juan
one?
Orlando Hernandez.
Well, I was asked by Honduras, many of the people of Honduras, they said it was a Biden setup. I don't mean Biden. Look, Biden didn't know he was alive, but it was the people that surround the Resolute desk, surround Biden when he was there, which was about very little time. And the people of Honduras really thought he was set up, and it was a terrible thing. He was the president of the country, and they basically said he was a drug dealer because he was the president of the country. And they said it was a Biden administration setup, and I looked at the facts and I agreed with them.
Yeah, there you go. Blaming Joe Biden. Let me just give you guys some facts on this. He was indicted by a U.S. grand jury. He was convicted by a jury that heard all the evidence and legal defenses, and he was sentenced by a U.S. judge. There is no question that there is somebody here who got paid off and had to have received some other major benefits so that Trump could get a huge drug trafficker free. That's exactly what happened here, ladies and gentlemen. That is the proof. Those are the facts. But, you know, there are people that are defending Donald Trump for this pardon, and there are people that are defending this second strike, which is clearly a war crime. I want you to listen to Representative Carlos Jimenez when talking in regards to Pete Hegseth. Have a listen to this.
Congressman, there are now growing calls for an oversight hearing and investigation. Your thoughts on this?
Look, it just seems all strange to me that you get the Democrats coming out with a video saying, you know, do not follow illegal orders, and then all of a sudden you get this. Apparently, these are anonymous kind of whistleblowers that's saying that something happened here. So, you know, I smell a rat here. I'm pretty sure that the Secretary of Defense had nothing to do with something like that, and it's just a way of you know, distracting from what really happened in D.C. You know, last week, where you had the murder of one National Guardsman and then the wounding of another by by an Afghan refugee, and so and I think it's just a distraction. So I'm with the president on this one. I don't believe the reports. I don't believe that Pete Hegseth said that. But going back to what it's all about, this is a strike on we're striking terrorists that are bringing poison into the United States. This poison has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. And so to me, it's no different than if that was a boat full of al-Qaeda terrorists heading to the United States, full of bombs. It's actually worse than that, because those drugs can actually kill far more Americans than any drug, any bomb-laden boat can.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with these strikes on these narco-terrorists.
Well, certainly.
First of all, there's no evidence that they were narco-terrorists, because Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, and the Trump administration have released no evidence that that is the case. I would also say that Carlos Jimenez is your honorary Trump mushroom gobbler of the day. That question had nothing to do with the National Guardsmen, sadly one of whom passed away and another is fighting for his life. That had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with the question. The question had to do with these boat strikes. And by the way, there is also no evidence that Senator Kelly and the other Democrats knew about this and put this out beforehand. But even if they did, what would be wrong with that? These were illegal orders. And it is pretty clear to me that it was sent down by Pete Hegseth. And then there's short man syndrome, Trump gobbler himself, Markwayne Mullin, who is also defending Donald Trump and defending the indefensible. Listen to this.
The president and the Secretary of War has been very clear they're going to use lethality against our enemies, home and abroad. This has been very clear what's going on right now, that the drug organization that is considered a terrorist organization that is flooding our streets with drugs, that's killing Americans every single day, they're being proactive on it. Good on them. Are we doubting that these drug dealers are actually drug dealers? Do we think they're just out there fishing? Do we doubt that this is a terrorist organization that's killing thousands and thousands of people on our streets? What are we questioning here? These individuals don't care about the lives of our friends and families. Why do we care if we take them out in international water? It is a war because they've declared war on our streets, and the president and Secretary Hegseth is doing exactly what we should be doing, being proactive against our enemies, and that's what they're doing here. And I applaud them for doing something, because the past administration did absolutely nothing, why thousands of Americans died on our streets.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that, again, that it's the Republican chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Republican chair of the House Armed Services Committee who say that they want to look at the whole operation, which you just described.
Yeah, and let me also help out another Trump mushroom gobbler, Markwayne Mullin. Killing people without any sort of trial at all, on a mere assertion that they are engaged in criminal behavior, is murder. The Trump administration are murdering people. They have provided zero evidence as to who these people are, what drugs were on the boat, anything. Of all the people on the right that are now protecting or trying to protect Pete Hegseth because Donald Trump is telling them to, I want you to listen to Representative Mark Alford in regards to this signal chat situation that we know now, based on an independent investigation, a bipartisan investigation, that yes, Pete Hegseth put our brave men and women in harm's way. And I want you to listen to Mark Alford, who of course is another MAGA mushroom gobbler, who won't answer the question here at the end, which I think is very prevalent to the conversation. Have a listen to this.
Terry's transmission on non-public operational information over Signal exposed sensitive information which could cause harm to DoD personnel and mission objectives. Are you worried about Secretary Hegseth's leadership, considering what you're seeing here from the IG?
Not one bit. I think Pete made a mistake in using Signal for some of this information, which was clearly not at risk, but it's something that probably should not have been put on Signal, as the IG's report says, but we've moved on from that.
Should he just admit the mistake, because he isn't? He went on Twitter and said he's totally exonerated. Are you worried about his response?
Look, I'm not Pete Hegseth. I'm not the Secretary of War. That is up to him and how he wants to operate as the really the commander right under President Trump for the Department of Defense.
Do you realize how ridiculous that response is? It's like if somebody raped somebody and they were proven to be guilty of raping somebody, and then somebody else outside the situation was asked, you think that person should apologize for what he did? And that response would be, well, I'm not the rapist. It is a cowardly statement. It is a cowardly way of not answering the question. Of course, Pete Hegseth should apologize. And by the way, Representative Mark Alford just lied, because in this bipartisan investigation, they proved that, yes, Pete Hegseth did put our brave men and women in harm's way by doing this. But Mark Alford says, oh, well, no, that didn't happen. Yes, it did. Then the concept of murder. Not the first strike, which you can argue is murder, because the Trump administration has not released any prevalent information that these are actually drug boats from Venezuela. They just say they are. Trust me, bro. But the second strike, when we've learned that these two individuals, one of them, family has already filed a lawsuit claiming that there were no drugs on that boat, that it was oil. The Trump administration has yet to prove, and they're the ones that murdered these two individuals, so they're the ones that should have to prove that there were drugs on that boat. They have not done so. They also have not released the second strike. Why is that? So I want to talk to you guys about your online life and privacy. And you know how sending a message in unprotected Wi-Fi is like yelling your secrets in a crowded room, right? Well, a VPN is like moving that conversation sort of like into a locked soundproof booth. That's what private internet access, or PIA, does. It encrypts your internet connection, hiding your IP address and protecting your personal information and everything you do from online hackers and others that are looking to exploit your private information. This important coverage obviously protects you from networks such as coffee shops, the airport, and even the Wi-Fi at your own house. So I've been using PIA myself. It's great. I love how simple it is. You just open the app, really, pick a location, say New York or even another country, and with one click, you're connected through a secure tunnel. Boom, total privacy. Also great for streaming, of course. Some shows or sports events are blocked based on where you live, but PIA lets you access content from 91 countries and all 50 U.S. states. That means you can watch what you want wherever you are. This includes your favorite streaming services such as Disney+, Netflix, even Hulu. And here's a big one. One subscription protects unlimited devices. Your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your TV, even your whole household is covered. Plus, PIA has a strict no logs policy that's been proven in court and verified by Deloitte. So they don't track what you do, period. So PIA is rated excellent on Trustpilot and signed up as a totally risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So how great is that? Protect yourself online. Grab 83% off plus 4 extra months free using my link, which is piavpn.com/PTL. Again, that's piavpn.com/PTL for the best online privacy deal out there. I've been using it daily, especially when traveling or working on public Wi-Fi. I've been traveling a lot lately, and it's one of the few tools I can honestly recommend to everyone. Well, as I've said before, and I'll say again, he hasn't released his tax returns. He won't release the medical reports on his MRI. He won't release the Epstein files. And now I guarantee you they're not going to release this second strike unless it's edited. But we've learned that there are two individuals that were clinging to the side of the boat. They did not have walkie-talkies. There was no form of communication for them asking for help from some bad guys, and they were murdered. And according to the Washington Post, it was Pete Hegseth that put that order down and said he didn't want any survivors. But idiots like Tom Cotton, who again is your mushroom MAGA gobbler of the day, wouldn't answer what is a very basic question. And I think Berman, I don't always agree with him on CNN. I thought he did a very good job in this interview. Listen to this exchange. It is basically Tom Cotton in a corner trying to defend murder. Have a listen to this.
Let me ask you this specific question. Would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers on a boat in an overturned lake?
Well, John, let me go back to the premise of your question. The Washington Post reported that Pete Hegseth had given an unlawful order of no quarter or no one left alive or kill them all. Pete Hegseth denied that last week, and it didn't deny that there was a second strike. Mitch Bradley and Dan Kane both flatly denied that yesterday as well, which some of the Democrats who watched that video and got those briefings confirmed. So that's what the Washington Post reported. That is a total and complete lie. I just respectfully disagree with my Democratic friends here. I think the problem they have is not with the second strike, it's with the first strike and every other strike on these boats. They think the entire operation is not well founded. I just disagree with them. I think the analogy I would draw is not Arkansas police officers dealing with American citizens. If those boats were loaded with bombs or missiles headed for the United States, I don't think anyone would dispute that we had every right and indeed a duty to intercept them. But those drugs detonate like a bomb all across Arkansas and all across America, killing hundreds of Arkansans and hundreds of thousands of Americans. Our government has a duty to protect our communities from those drugs.
Senator,
that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Can I just take this in pieces? And we first answer my question, would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers on an overturned boat in a lake in Arkansas? Just answer that, and then I will address your question on the other thing.
John, the premise of your question is not well founded. Criminals in Arkansas are not foreign nationals who are affiliates of a foreign terrorist designated organization.
The answer is no, it would not be legal.
It's like saying
hang on, Senator. The answer is no, it would not be legal to kill them. But let me ask a follow-up question. If they are terrorists, when did Congress pass the authorized use of force to attack them?
John, the reason why your question is not well founded is like saying, would Barack Obama be okay droning an American citizen when he was president like he did to Anwar al-Awlaki over in the Middle East? These are totally different categories.
Senator, that's why I asked when Congress passed the authorized use of military force. There was an authorized use of military force against terrorists. I'm not saying what he did was legal or not, but that's what they based it on. In this case, when was the authorized use of military force to attack suspected drug dealers off the coast of Venezuela?
John, the president has inherent authority as the commander-in-chief under the Constitution to protect America using our armed forces against a foreign terrorist organization.
Tom Cotton is a liar. The president doesn't have the full power to do what they have been doing when it comes to these boats from Venezuela. That is a lie. And the reason why Berman, correctly so, did a good job in asking him, when did Congress pass the authorized use of force, is because they haven't when it comes to this specific issue. Notice how Tom Cotton wouldn't answer, because the answer is no. And for the president and Pete Hegseth to give this kind of authority to use this use of force, they have to have the permission from Congress in order to do so. Hence, why I call it murder and why I call it a war crime. By the way, he says that he uses the term well-founded, these drugs apparently. Where has it been well-founded? Trust me, bro, from Pete Hegseth, they haven't released any information to my knowledge to prove anything, to prove who these people were, to prove that they were bad guys, to even prove that there were drugs on these boats.
Since when is kill them all a military order?
Well, I'm very grateful that there are still some people that have a moral compass. I warned you guys, not you knew who Pete Hegseth was, but when I say you guys, I warned everybody on this show what a destructive, abusive piece of human garbage and incompetent person Pete Hegseth is, right? We covered the signal chat stuff, and obviously he put troops in harm's way. Well, two top House lawmakers and others are talking a little bit about this private briefing with a military official who oversaw the drug vessel attack. And there are also people that were briefed on this signal chat, and there was a bipartisan investigation into it, and that investigation showed or proved that, yes, Pete Hegseth put our own brave men and women in uniform in harm's way because of that signal chat, which, by the way, shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but there was no fallout, really, no accountability. Caroline Leavitt, the lying you-know-what Leavitt, said that there's nothing to see here, and now this new briefing, and you have some politicians and lawmakers coming out saying, wow, this is really good.
Hegseth said he unclassified it in his mind.
Yep.
Do you want me to read a little bit of what he exactly said before we do the segment?
Please do. Yep.
So he says, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern time. F-18's launch, first strike package, 1345, trigger-based, F-18 first strike window starts. MQ-9s, 1410. This is military time, by the way, for those who don't know. More F-18s launch, second strike package, 1415, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop.
What an idiot. What
if the combatants, the enemy combatants, what if they had heard that and they knew this was coming at that exact time?
And fair point, and that is why they concluded in this investigation that absolutely put troops in harm's way. The fact that Pete Hegseth is still the defense secretary is mesmerizing to me, but I'm going to give you my opinion now. Ron Filipowski and I both agreed that Kash Patel is probably the next person to go, but I'm going to put Pete Hegseth right ahead of him right now.
Well, bipartisan committees are calling for his removal.
Right. So I think Hegseth is probably the next person to go, and then he can crawl his way back to Fox News and maybe do another weekend anchor show or whatever the hell else he's going to do.
I think he was just a commentator, right? He wasn't an anchor, right?
You know, you're not very talented when you can't even get a Monday through Friday gig when you are a Trump mushroom gobbler 24/7, and they still won't hire you.
Is he in the running for Trump mushroom gobbler of the day?
I haven't decided on that yet, but anyway, this is some serious stuff. And this double tap strike that killed surviving crew members is obviously a war crime. And I do find it very interesting that this happened several months ago. Okay. They have video of the second strike, but they haven't released it. They've edited out the second strike. They've only showed the first strike. And I find it quite interesting.
Trump said he certainly would when asked in a news conference.
Yeah.
He was asked and he said, I certainly would, but they still haven't sent it out. And by the way, it comes right out of the Military Code of Justice. The definition is if they're shipwrecked. The word shipwrecked is in their actual policy, and people are floating in the water. You have to not only not murder them, you have to take them into custody and provide care. That's what the American Military Code of Justice says.
Of course. So, again, they're going to defend Pete Hegseth until they can't anymore. I'd like to know if they're so transparent, why won't they show the second strike?
We know why.
And listen, I'm not here to defend drug dealers, but here's the problem. Even if you are a drug dealer, is it okay to execute somebody? Of course not. They deserve their day in court, and we deserve to know the facts in this. And I guarantee you, if the tide was flipped and it was Joe Biden or Barack Obama or another Democrat who did something like this, they would be calling on their resignation. Or impeachment. Yeah. So this is really bad stuff. And again, not like we're putting the Epstein stuff in the back burner, because that hasn't even been put out there yet. But it's like one controversy and one thing after another. Now we're talking about war crimes, and it's mesmerizing to me. But this is what happens when you put incompetent people in powerful positions. We know this. Kash Patel, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. God knows how many people have died because of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s anti-vaccine rhetoric. Kristi Noem, who is one of the worst human beings. Cosplay Kristi. Oh my God. Cosplay Kristi, one of the worst human beings around.
There's a reason, Brian, why it takes 25, 30 years and a solid career to become the director of the FBI, the leader of the Department of Justice. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why you have an entire career that you're there for decades.
And by the way, it doesn't matter whether they think these people are drug dealers or drug smugglers or not. Let me be very clear here. It is considered a war crime to kill shipwrecked people.
Yes.
Period. There is no caveat to that. And their defense is, well, we wanted to get rid of all these people because they're drug smugglers. You are breaking the law. These are war crimes. The United States is supposed to set the standard, and it's wrong. And it shouldn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat that is doing this, because I guarantee you, if there was a Democrat in office right now and they did the same thing, I'd be calling that out as well. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about Joe Biden. We're not talking about Barack Obama, what you think he did or didn't do. We are talking about the president of the United States. The buck stops with him. And of course, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who was claiming he wasn't in the room and he didn't give out the command.
I'm glad you said that, because the Department of Defense, the leader of the Department of Defense, does not get to say, oh, by the way, I left the room. You don't get to say that. When you're in charge, you're the guy. You're the Secretary of Defense.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if the admiral did it.
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth is still responsible and liable. And I don't know if you know, but behind the scenes, the Trump administration has been pressuring the ICC, the International Criminal Court, by saying they're going to pull funding, by saying that they're going to not partner with them anymore. And the ICC in a news article said that they're going to go ahead with the charges anyway, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
So this is just getting worse and worse by the day as more information will continue to come out.
It's
By
terrible.
the way,
It's murder.
some of you might be wondering, how did this boat story come to be? There are people that work for the government that are fed up with what Pete Hegseth is doing. This is a story that was leaked. There are people that work underneath Pete Hegseth. Somebody, a person or persons that leaked this information to the Washington Post and to the media because they find it extremely troubling. Now, I would call those people actual real patriots. They see that, wait a second, something's not right here. A second strike, kill all survivors. Wait, we can't be doing this stuff. I have to leak this to somebody. I would call that person or persons,
Since
whoever
when
you
is
are,
kill them all a military order?
well, I'm
Since
very
when?
grateful that there are still some
Yes.
people that have a moral compass. And then there's a fallout guy here. Pete Hegseth, obviously, these are through his orders, okay? I don't care what the White House says. It is a joke. So we're going to continue to monitor both of these stories. The Signalgate story did not go away. Now they were briefed on this, and it's worse than we
They
thought.
said
apparently.
they said Pete Hegseth put
Yeah.
troops in danger.
Right. It's worse than we thought for some of us. So that story's not going away. Pete Hegseth is on the hot seat there. And then, of course, on this second strike, which is an abomination, and I would absolutely call it a war crime.